We will have our first group presenting. This is a group 1 who has a title, Analyze on BRI FOIP Criticism and Improvements.
Good morning and good evening. We are Group 1 and our topic is Analyze on BRI and FOIP Criticism and Improvements. And this is our index for the presentation. Since FOIP can be viewed as a reactionary initiative against BRI, I think it is important for us to first analyze what BRI is. So, what is BRI? BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, into global consciousness when Chinese leader Xi Jinping first proposed the Silk Road Economic Belt in Kazakhstan in August 2013. It is a hegemony foreign state project in China that covers 62 countries and lasts 150 years. It contains plans to build a maritime Silk Road connecting the South China Sea to the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, centering on neighboring countries of China to make China a world-class power. The plan is to build a huge economic bloc centered on China by bringing logistics, energy, and industries in these regions together.
I would like to introduce one example of what happened due to this way of developing infrastructure facilities. The case of Port Hambantota, Sri Lanka. As Sri Lanka is unable to repay its debt to China, China has decided to release Sri Lanka's land for 99 years. China charged Sri Lanka an interest rate of 2 to 6.5%. The deferment period was so short, the postponement of repayment was not heeded, and Sri Lanka was forced to lease the land as the infrastructure built with the loan was not profitable. Now I would like to see the way Japan and Canada have been supporting in the Pacific region. Canada has a history contributing to the Kingdom of Tonga. Canada's achievements are based on fulfilling the needs of the local people. It is important to connect with the locals and consider their needs when doing so. Japan has contributed to the growth of the Indo-Pacific region through its ODA, short of Offshore Development Assistance. Japan has been prioritizing its own development and interest in ODA at first, but Japan has changed its policy to ensure that recipient country and other countries. As Japan and the world developed, Japan's cooperative system changed and improved, eventually growing to the point where it sought to establish a non-exclusive, comprehensive relationship for development and stability as FOIP. China's power is something that cannot be ignored. Both Japan and Canada need to utilize their past achievement to cooperate with the Indo-Pacific region, including China. It would be desirable for Japan to continue to make the relationship between Japan and China a good one, and for Canada to actively enter the Indo-Pacific region.
In direct response of BRI, Japan's Prime Minister Abe Shinzo established Free and Open Indo-Pacific, FOIP. It should be noted that the Indo-Pacific does not refer to India as a country, but the meaning of the Indian Ocean in marine space. In other words, the Indo-Pacific regional strategy focuses on international relationships between countries around the Indian Ocean and countries around the Pacific Ocean. The Indo-Pacific was reconceptualized as a new but highly artificial area connecting the marine space from the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean and the continent bordering it. Originally, it was a policy that emphasized the exclusive cooperation structure between the US, Japan, India, Australia, Quad countries, but it stayed as political rhetoric rather than actual policies due to differences in positions according to each country's maritime policy. After their first attempt, Japan expanded their initiation from the previous 4 countries to the continental spaces, including Asia and Africa, laying the foundation for FOIP. 3 factors play a major role in the Abe administration's reconception of Indo-Pacific as a strategic space. First, in September 2010, a Chinese fishing boat and a patrol ship belonging to the Japan Maritime Security Agency collided in the waters of Senkaku. Since then, Japan has paid attention to China's offensive actions at sea. Senkaku is a territorial dispute area owned by the Japanese government. Japan, China, and Taiwan respectively claim their sovereignty over the area. This provocation led to increased awareness of threats to China in Japan. Second, Trump administration has rejected Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP for short, which greatly affected the diplomatic relationship between Japan and USA, making USA's stance very unclear. Third, the scope of the redefined allies provides an appropriate direction for the private Japanese companies to find areas that can replace China, strengthening strategic partnerships with countries sharing similar issues.
In the South China Sea, China unilaterally claimed 9 dash lines around the supplementary islands like this picture and constructed several artificial islands. Under these circumstances, Philippines brought the case to arbitration. At the court, China's claim and activities were mostly rejected. However, China still has continued illegal activities in the area, and also in 2018, China legislated the new Coast Guard law, which violates international law and greatly threatens peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. From FOIP's perspective, China should follow this decision so that Indo-Pacific area will be under a rule-based order. So, what can Canada and Japan specifically do to solve the problem? We came up with 3 solutions. The first way is to boost functional cooperation and dialogue with claimant states through the International Maritime Organization. For instance, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief programs can help ease intensified maritime situation. The second one is to use G7 framework because all member states share the common values. In 2016, G7 officially expressed its strong opposition to unilateral actions that raise tensions in the South China Sea, according to Philippines arbitration. China opposed such announcement, but this surely worked effectively in terms of its representativeness of solidarity among like-minded nations. The last point is to harmonize the different perspectives toward FOIP. Look at the table on the right side of this slide. Each nation has its own way of calling Indo-Pacific policy. For example, the United States uses strategy that possibly includes hard power. On the other hand, ASEAN, France, and Germany avoid such strong expression. Then Japan and Canada are in the middle way, using initiative, which implies both soft and hard standpoint. The 2 countries should play a leading role in integration of the concept of FOIP.
In conclusion, everything leads to believe that Ottawa engaging with FOIP will strengthen its relations with Tokyo. Not only does it advance Canadian national interests, but also promotes collaboration between like-minded political allies like Japan. According to Jeffrey Reeves in his paper, Canada's strategic approach to Asia, Canada disengaging with the FOIP would mean losing reputation points with potential partners in the Indo-Pacific, as ASEAN, for example. This could be critical for Canada's worldwide image, as the country is often considered a fervent defender of human rights. In terms of benefits, signing with the FOIP can help Canada and Japan better understand the needs of Indo-Pacific countries. The possibility of establishing long-lasting relations in this region could be truly beneficial for the partnership of tomorrow. Moreover, it would contribute to maintaining Canada's and Japan's reputation on an international level. In terms of the disadvantages, Ottawa and Tokyo should not expect their relations with Beijing to improve anytime soon. Like any other country, choosing sides is not always ideal, especially not in a multipolar era dividing the world between China and the US. Canadian as well as Japanese values pursue an idea of development that embraces a humanitarian perspective. However, China still resorts to violence instead of using soft power in respecting international law. China's numerous and even recent human rights violations demonstrate that the Belt and Road Initiative might not be trustworthy in the long term. Some argued might even constitute a threat to the sovereignty of countries neighboring China. In 2022, it is critical to find a middle ground through dialogue. It is a great time for Canada to engage in the FOIP and promote an all-inclusive way to conduct business. It is a duty of wealthy nations like Japan and Canada to join forces for the sake of the common good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group 4. So now we'll have an opportunity for a question.
This was an excellent presentation. The research was well done, and I'm quite impressed. One question, if I may. As you have pointed out in your presentation, both BRI and Indo-Pacific visions or strategies or whatever you call it have the element of support for infrastructure building, both physical and digital. And China is not a member of DAC countries. Therefore, their rule of providing aid is different from Canadian or Japanese rules for providing aid. And that is the source of the problem with BRI, as you have pointed out. Are there any possible Canadian and Japanese collaboration in improving transparency or rules of aid for the credibility and transparency? Any ideas?
Yeah, indeed, ODA and China's way of supporting developing countries are different a little bit, but I think we can show the FOIP sites can show the framework of supporting such countries and make a new law or something that such kind of thing at international conference or G7 framework.
Excellent. That's the main point that we have to work for. Otherwise, recipients of aid, particularly from BRI, would suffer from the repayment burden and have to make compromises which they do not want to. So framework or rules or standards for quality investment assistance would be necessary. That's a terrific response. Thank you.
My question regards the BRI and the potential of resistance to it by certain countries, given perhaps what they see as advantages from China and or fear of China. How would you respond to that?
I think it is important for us to respond to it collectively and united as various countries. It's not going to work as just US versus China. It's not going to work. We have to unite and show the international opinion about those tyranny and set some groundworks for what have to be done.
My question is that you have a very positive view of Japan's ODA, but in history, Japan's ODA has sometimes was also criticized as when Japan was still economically doing well, as the some sort of economic colonialism, and it's that sort of angle. So do you see any similarities, similar views on Japan's ODA and BRI?
What I wanted to say was that Japan did something that China is doing now, but I think Japan have changed the way they wanted to do, because first Japan was only focusing, not only, but more focusing on the benefits of own country, but they come over, I think, on some point, and Japan can teaching China that it is more effectively for your own country's developing, that should focus more on big point of view of supporting, that's not focusing on only on your own country or short-term benefits. I talked about the ODA today.
it's clear.
To
Okay,
add to what Julie just said, I do agree that Japan should play the big brother's role of China. And I also believe that the situation is quite different considering China is counterbalancing the hegemonic power of America. And so they need to impose themselves on an international scale to be able to make differences. But are they taking the right direction? We don't know yet. And this is why we still believe that if they would join FOIP, that would help them as well as other countries to make their way in, because FOIP is not excluding China, like we've said. So they should as well participate with other countries, and all together we can put ourselves up instead of downing some countries instead.
Congratulate Group 1 on successful presentation. Thank you very much.